The more someone pulls back, the more power they gain. If you've ever noticed this strange pattern, you'll see that the moment you stop reaching out, they start watching. The moment you pull back, they start leaning in. That's not just coincidence, that's psychology, that's power, that's Stoicism in motion. If you've been the one doing all the chasing, all the explaining, and all the trying, you're about to understand why the real obsession doesn't begin when you try to get closer. It begins when you step away. Now, picture this. You're in a room yelling at someone who's walking away. You're screaming louder, trying to make them turn back, but they keep moving. The more noise you make, the more they know they've got your attention. But now, imagine this. What if instead of yelling, you went quiet, cold, and disappeared into the crowd? No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. That's when they turn around. Why? Because silence hits differently. Silence is like a ghost in their mind, quiet but always present. It's not passive, it's not weak, it's power, it's presence without noise. It's like dropping a stone into a still lake and watching the ripples stretch endlessly. They don't hear you, but they feel you. My friends, you've been taught the biggest lie, that the more effort you show, the more they'll care. That if you stay close, they'll stay interested. But the truth is, familiarity breeds blindness, and availability becomes invisibility. People don't chase what's always in front of them. They chase what's missing, what's mysterious, what makes them wonder. Have you ever noticed how the hottest item in a store is always the one that says limited stock? The same principle applies to attention. When it's rare, it becomes valuable. When it's constant, it becomes background noise. This is where it flips. The more you pull back, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, the more they start asking questions. Why aren't they texting? Why did they stop liking my posts? Are they over me? Just like that, you become a loop in their mind that keeps playing. They can't close the story because you didn't give them an ending, and that's when obsession is born. Not from love, but from lack of access. See, when you're always available, you're like an open book they've already read. But when you pull back, you become a story they can't finish. You become the chapter that suddenly ended mid-sentence. Humans hate unfinished stories, folks. This isn't about games, it's about strategy. It's about no longer giving your power away as if it's free. Your energy is gold, your attention is currency. The more you pull back and invest it in yourself, your body, your mind, your purpose, the more you'll feel something magical. Peace. It's the kind of peace they notice because they're no longer a part of it. And let me tell you something straight. They feel it, even if they don't say it. Even if they act cold, they feel the distance. They feel the silence, and it burns slowly day by day. So don't chase, don't explain, and don't beg to be understood by someone who has lost access to your presence. Pull back, rise up, and let them feel the weight of what they lost. Not because you said anything, but because you didn't. Remember this affirmation: my silence builds power. Say it to yourself. Live it. What's coming next is going to flip everything you thought you knew. Pulling back creates mystery, not rejection. People don't chase what they already understand. They chase what they can't explain. Let that sink in. Most folks think pulling back means giving up. That if you stop showing up, they'll stop thinking about you. They fear that if you go quiet, you'll be forgotten. But that's not how the mind works. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're walking through a dark forest at night with a flashlight. That beam of light lets you see everything clearly. Nothing feels threatening. It's all visible and known. But now imagine the light dies. Suddenly every shadow feels alive. Every sound feels personal. Every movement feels close, even if it's far. Why? Because mystery awakens the senses. The unknown becomes powerful the moment it's no longer in your grasp. That's what happens when you pull back. They no longer have access to you, and suddenly, You become that shadow in the forest, that question mark in their mind, that silence that screams louder than your presence ever did. But here's the problem: your fear. You're afraid to stop texting because deep down, you think silence means you've lost. You think distance means they'll forget. You've been taught by movies, friends, and your own overthinking that love requires constant closeness, that if you stop showing them attention, someone else will take your place, that if you step back, they'll walk away for good. Let me break that lie for you. They don't forget the one who vanished without a trace. They don't forget the one who left questions behind. They forget the one who stayed too long, explained too much, and made themselves too predictable. That's the one who fades. That's the one who becomes noise in a world already too loud. You're not noise, you're the silence after the music, the part that makes them replay the song. Yes, pulling back will feel unnatural at first. You'll fight it. You'll want to check if they viewed your story. You'll want to send that just checking in message. You'll want to explain that you still care because you've been trained to think love is proved by presence. But what if the proof is in the absence? What if the moment you stop trying to be seen is the exact moment they start looking for you? People chase mystery. They crave answers they can't find. When you pull back, not out of manipulation, but out of self-worth, you stop being the one who needs closure and become the one who creates it. That changes everything. Pulling back doesn't say, "I'm done." It says, "I know what I bring, and if you can't see it, I won't beg you to." That's not bitterness, that's power. That's not coldness, that's clarity. Stoicism teaches us not to react, but to respond. And sometimes the best response is none at all. You want to know what really hits hard? When the person who always used to explain themselves suddenly doesn't. When the one who used to chase disappears. That's when the weight of your silence hits. That's when your absence becomes heavy. Because now they're not replaying what you said. They're haunted by what you didn't say. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to post to be noticed. You don't need to beg to be valued. Pull back, not because you're scared, but because you're finally choosing you. Let your mystery do the talking. Let your absence echo louder than your presence ever could. Let them sit in the silence they created. Write this in the comments. I pull back to protect my power. Say it loud. Say it for yourself. Say it for every version of you that begged to be chosen. Show the world what happens when you stop chasing and start becoming. What's coming next? Oh, we're just getting warmed up. When you stop feeding their ego and start feeding your own soul, everything changes. Stay with me. Scarcity makes people reevaluate your worth. When your presence becomes rare, your value becomes undeniable. Let that hit because it's the truth most people don't want to hear, especially when they've been taught to keep giving, keep showing up, and keep proving their worth to someone who barely even notices anymore. But I'll tell you this, my friends, people don't value what's always there. They value what they suddenly realize they can't get back. Imagine this. You've got water running from a tap, always flowing. You never think twice about it. It's expected, constant and boring. But the moment that water shuts off, you notice. You panic. Now it matters. Suddenly you're checking the pipes, twisting the knobs, wondering what went wrong. That's exactly how people treat consistent attention. As long as you keep pouring into them, your time, your energy, your messages, they'll sip from it mindlessly. Maybe they'll smile, maybe they'll nod, but they won't feel the weight of what you're giving. They won't see it because it's always there until it's not. That's where the power lives, in the scarcity. The moment you stop being so available, the moment your energy isn't on tap, that's when people start to reevaluate. That's when they stop taking you for granted and start replaying everything you used to do for them. Why don't they check in anymore? Why haven't they viewed my story? Did they really move on? These aren't questions born from love. These are questions born from withdrawal. Withdrawal only happens when you stop feeding the system. They were comfortable when you were always there. Comfortable knowing you'd reply. Comfortable knowing you'd reach out. Comfortable knowing you'd still be around even after they ignored you, overlooked you, or treated your attention like background noise. But comfort breeds carelessness, and that's why your consistency turned into invisibility. You weren't too much, you were too accessible. You didn't care too deeply, you just gave too freely. You were pouring oceans into people who only wanted sips, and now you're the one left empty. So here's what you do. You pull back, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to rebalance. You stop over-explaining, you stop checking, you stop waiting, you stop giving yourself away for free. Because your time isn't cheap, your energy isn't a handout, your presence is a privilege. When they finally notice the silence, when they feel that space you once filled with consistency, warmth, and understanding, they'll look around and see nothing measures up. Not the dry conversations, not the forced laughs, not the replacements they thought would be upgrades, because no one can replace the energy that came from your authenticity. Here's what makes this hard, though. Your fear will lie to you. It'll tell you that pulling back means being forgotten, that if you create distance, they'll just move on. But let me ask you this. What are they doing with your presence right now? Are they choosing you? Are they honoring you? Or are they getting comfortable knowing you'll never leave? That's not connection. That's convenience. That's ego food, and you're not on the menu anymore. So take your energy back. Focus it inward. Level up. Lock in. Because here's what happens next. And I've seen it time and time again. The moment you become rare, you become valuable. They'll feel it when your name stops showing up. They'll notice when your light isn't shining in their world anymore. They'll remember the way your presence once made them feel and realize how cold it feels without it. That's the law of scarcity, and it doesn't need your effort. It just needs your distance. You don't need to block them. You don't need to make a speech. Just stop showing up where you're not respected. Watch how fast the story changes when your silence becomes the loudest chapter they can't rewrite. Write this in the comments right now. My presence is a privilege. Say it like you mean it. Show it in how you move. Show it in how you stop chasing and start choosing. Let the world around you feel what happens when a rare energy walks away. Because what's coming next? We're not just pulling back anymore. We're about to starve the ego that fed off your attention and feed something far more powerful. Stay with me. Emotional distance amplifies presence. The quieter you become, the louder they start to hear you. Strange, right? But that's how it works. Not just in psychology, but in life. It's the silence that echoes. It's the distance that makes your presence louder than any words ever could. The moment you stop being emotionally available to someone who took you for granted is the exact moment they start to feel you the most. Let me break it down. Imagine a radio that plays all day. Background noise you barely notice anymore. It's just there, familiar, predictable. But one day that radio cuts off, the music stops, and suddenly the silence feels heavy. You glance over, wondering what happened. You didn't care when it was playing, but now that it's gone, you feel the absence. That's exactly how your emotional energy works. When you're always emotionally present, checking in, liking posts, offering support, trying to keep the peace, you become like that background music. Nice to have, rarely valued. But when you go quiet, when you pull back your emotional availability, when you stop being the cushion for their coldness, that's when they start to notice everything. Why do they feel distant now? Are they mad? Did I lose them? Why aren't they reacting anymore? Just like that, the questions begin. The mental replay starts. They start combing through the last conversation, rereading old messages, overthinking your silence like it's a puzzle. Because emotional distance doesn't erase you. it magnifies you. Let's be real here. This won't feel easy at first. You've been trained to think that love means availability, that if you care, you should show it constantly, that if you're quiet, you're being passive-aggressive, that if you don't respond, you're being petty. But that's the lie society sold you. Here's the truth. Emotional access is a privilege, not a guarantee. You don't owe anyone constant updates on your feelings. You don't owe anyone emotional responses when they've stopped earning them. You don't have to be the emotional punching bag while they figure themselves out. Stoicism isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about choosing not to react just because your feelings got poked. It's about mastering your response when your emotions scream for validation. That's real control, that's strength. Because when they expect a reaction from you and get nothing, that silence stings. It rattles their ego. It makes them wonder if they ever really knew you or if you've evolved beyond the version they once had access to. And yes, it creates emotional distance, but that distance is where they feel you most. That's where they start craving the certainty they once took for granted. Because now you're not reacting, you're not trying to win them back, you're not seeking closure, you're simply absent, present in their mind, but nowhere to be found in their world. That's powerful. Let's talk about why it works, why distance makes you louder. Because the brain hates loose ends. It hates stories without resolution. It hates not knowing. That silence you give them isn't just quiet. It's tension. It's pressure. It's the weight of what's missing. You're no longer someone they can control with a few words. You're no longer predictable. You've become an open loop, and open loops are the birthplace of obsession. Not because you chased, but because you didn't. You chose calm over chaos. You chose peace over proving yourself. You chose to protect your emotional energy instead of bleeding it out, trying to fix someone who didn't even say thank you. This is the turning point, folks. The moment you stop trying to be emotionally available to someone who used your presence as convenience and start becoming emotionally unavailable to protect your power. Write this in the comments. My distance speaks louder than my words. Say it and show it. Don't just disappear, elevate. Let them watch you grow in silence. Let them feel your absence in ways they can't explain. What's coming next? Oh, we're about to drop every single breadcrumb you've ever left behind. We're going to vanish so clean they'll start to wonder if you were ever real. Stay locked in. The power of unread signals and silent goodbyes is immense. Sometimes the loudest "I'm done" is the message you never send. That's where most people get it wrong. They think closure comes from a final text, a long message, a voice note, a goodbye that wraps everything in a neat little bow. But in the real world, where power, presence, and respect matter, it's the silence that hits the hardest. It's the message that's never sent, that keeps replaying in their mind like an unfinished song. Imagine standing at a train station. A train pulls in, and you expect someone to get off. You wait. The doors open, but nobody shows. The doors close again, and the train leaves, leaving you standing there wondering, were they ever even on that train? That's what silence feels like when someone expected a reaction from you, but got nothing, no message, no response, no explanation. Suddenly, they don't get closure, they get confusion. That confusion is powerful because the mind wants resolution. It needs to understand why you didn't respond, why you didn't beg, why you didn't even bother to say goodbye. When they don't get it, they start replaying everything over and over again. Not because they care about what happened, but because they're trying to regain the control they lost when you didn't play by the script. They expected the usual ending, a message saying, "I'll always care about you," or a comment like, "I just want closure," a final reach out, one last emotional check-in. But you didn't give them that, and that's why they can't stop thinking about you. Unread signals, silent goodbyes. No final act, just a closed door with no sound. That's where your power is. That's the part they never saw coming. But here's where you'll feel resistance. Your mind will lie to you. You'll tell yourself it's rude, that it's cold, that if you just say this one last thing, maybe they'll finally understand. Maybe they'll finally value what you gave. Maybe this one message will bring you the closure you never got. But let me say this with all the love and clarity I can give. They knew what they were doing when they ignored you, when they disrespected you, when they pulled back while you were still giving. They don't need a final message. They need to feel your absence and your silence. That's what will haunt them, not because you were cruel, but because you were done. There is power in not reacting. There is freedom in choosing silence when everything inside you wants to scream. That kind of control, that kind of emotional restraint is not weakness, it's dominance. Here's the twist. The more calmly you disappear, the louder your absence becomes in their life. They start seeing the messages you didn't send, the calls you didn't make, the energy you no longer give, and it starts to sting. Because now you're no longer emotionally accessible. You're no longer emotionally predictable. You've become something rare, and rare things always feel more valuable after they're gone. This isn't about ghosting. This isn't about games. This is about walking away with grace, with dignity, with silence. Because silence, that's what stays with them. No last message, no final plea, no drama, just you gone. Like a book closed mid-sentence, like a movie that ended before the final scene, like a heartbeat that used to be in sync with theirs, suddenly gone from the rhythm. That's what they feel now. That's what they remember. So when you're tempted to reach out to say, just one more thing, don't. That message will never carry the weight your silence already has. That call will never hit as hard as your absence already does. Instead, let your silence echo in every space they expected your attention. Let your unread signals and quiet exit become the moment they realize they lost access to something real. Now, write this in the comments, my friends. My silence is the message. Say it and mean it, because you don't need closure when you've already closed the door on anything that disrespected your worth. What's coming next? Oh, it gets colder. Now that we've said nothing, we're going to leave them questioning everything. Stay close. We're not done. The brain hates open loops. Use that. It's not what you said that haunts them. It's what you never said. This is where the real psychological magic kicks in. People think silence is forgetting, that walking away quietly means fading into the background. But the truth is, silence doesn't erase you. It burns you into their memory. The mind can't handle the unknown. It craves answers. It needs closure. When it doesn't get it, it starts filling in the blanks over and over again. That's how obsession is born. Let's break it down like this. Ever had a song stuck in your head, but you can't remember the lyrics? Just one part loops endlessly. You hum it, you Google it, you try to shake it, but it's there. Unfinished, unresolved, annoying, addictive, unforgettable. That's what you become when you leave an emotional loop open. You didn't say goodbye. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't react. You didn't chase. And now they don't know what page you're on. That uncertainty hits deeper than any text you could have sent. Because now their brain is doing the chasing. Their mind is trying to solve the puzzle you walked away from. Were they really done? Did I hurt them more than I thought? Why didn't they say anything? Did I matter at all? Are they hurting or healing? Just like that, you live rent-free inside their mind. You don't need a dramatic exit to leave a permanent mark. You just need to not close the loop, and their imagination will do the rest. That's not manipulation, my friends. That's psychology. It's how we're wired. Our brains hate open stories. It's why cliffhangers make us binge watch an entire season. It's why unanswered texts feel worse than rejection. It's why silence, true silence, shakes people more than shouting ever could. But here's where it gets real. You'll be tempted to close the loop yourself, to explain your silence, to send that "just so you know" message, because a part of you still wants to be understood. You want them to get it, to know how bad they hurt you, to see what they lost. But hear me loud and clear. If they couldn't see it when you were giving everything, your silence will teach them what your words never could. You're not here to explain your value anymore. You're here to embody it. The more you resist the urge to close the loop, the more powerful you become. The more emotionally untouchable you become, the more mysterious you become. And mystery, that's gold. Mystery is what keeps them up at night. It's what makes them scroll through your old photos. It's what makes them wonder if you're with someone new. It's what makes them question every move they made while you were still in their life. When someone can't figure you out, they don't forget you. They can't. That's why silence is strategic. That's why distance is a weapon. That's why your non-response becomes the loudest thing they hear. So let them sit with it. Let them overthink it. Let them wrestle with the silence they never expected. Because the moment you pull back and leave that loop unfinished, they begin writing the story in their own head. And trust me, that story is always more intense, more emotional, and more painful than anything you could have said. They'll assume you're doing great. They'll imagine you've moved on. They'll picture you smiling while they're stuck wondering. That's the power of the open loop. Write this in the comments right now. I don't close loops, I create them. Say it, own it, let it guide your next move. Because you're not here to prove a point. You're here to protect your peace. The next time they try to figure you out, they'll realize they no longer have access to the answers. And that, my friends, is when the real obsession begins. Stay with me. What comes next? We're going to stop feeding their ego completely and start feeding something far more important, your future. When you detach completely, when you cut the emotional cord for good, you don't just starve their ego, you become magnetic. Let's go. When you detach, you become magnetic. You don't attract by chasing. You attract by moving like you're already whole. There's a shift that happens when you finally detach. Not pretend, not fake it, but actually let go. It's wild because the moment you stop needing them is the moment they start needing to understand what happened. You go from being emotionally tangled in their energy to floating so far above it that they have to squint just to feel your presence. And that, my friends, is when the tables turn. Detachment isn't cold, it's clarity. It's not about being numb, it's about being free. It's when you stop waking up wondering if they're thinking about you because you're too busy thinking about your next move. It's when you stop measuring your day by their response, their silence, their vibe, and start measuring it by your growth, your focus, your peace. That's magnetic, that's rare, that's what draws people in without you lifting a finger. Imagine a fire. When you're constantly tossing logs at it, frantically trying to keep it burning, it smokes, it fizzles, it suffocates. But when you step back and just let it breathe, the flame settles into something strong, something calm, something undeniable. That's what detachment does to your energy. It makes it burn steady, and people feel that heat even from far away. The truth is, they expected you to crumble. They expected you to spiral. They expected you to text, to beg, to post some sad caption hoping they'd notice. They were ready for that version of you, the one they had power over. But when they look up and see you not reacting, not reaching, not flinching, it sends a shockwave through their mind. Because now they're confused. Now you're the unpredictable one, and unpredictable energy, that's attractive, that's dangerous, that's unforgettable. They start chasing, not because they love you, but because they don't understand you anymore. You've become a mystery, a question they can't answer, a vibe they can't read. That's what detachment does. It pulls you out of their emotional orbit and puts you in their mental loop. They start checking your page, not to connect, but to decode. They want to know who you are now. They want to know if you've moved on. They want to know how you just let go. But here's what you've got to remember. You're not doing this to be wanted. You're doing this to be well. You're not detaching so they come running. You're detaching because chasing them was costing you. You were spending your peace, your sleep, your dignity, all for what? A breadcrumb of attention? A lukewarm reply? Nah, that chapter's done. You walk different now. You talk less. You post less. You protect your energy like gold. You don't move for attention anymore. You move with intention. And that shift, that's what sets off the alarms in their soul. That's what whispers, you lost something real. Not because you said it, but because your silence said it better. They may try to test you. They may throw a bait text, a random like, a half-hearted reach out just to see if you'll bite. But you're not biting, you're building. You're not waiting, you're winning. And every day you keep your energy to yourself. You become more magnetic, because the most attractive thing in the world isn't someone who wants to be chosen. It's someone who already chose themselves. Write this in the comments. I detach and become magnetic. Say it, mean it, let it echo through your actions. Because this new version of you, the one who doesn't chase, who doesn't flinch, who doesn't fold under pressure, is about to attract everything they never appreciated, not by begging for it, but by being it. And what comes next? Oh, you already know. When certainty ends and your absence becomes the question they can't escape, that's when obsession is born. Obsession begins when certainty ends. People don't obsess over what they understand. They obsess over what they can't explain. And that's the shift right there. That's the moment when things flip. When the person who used to be so sure about you suddenly isn't. When the one who thought they had you wrapped around their finger starts checking their phone a little too often. That's not magic. That's not luck. That's psychology. Because certainty is comforting, but uncertainty, that's addicting. As long as they were certain you'd stay, certain you'd reply, certain you'd care, no matter how little they gave, then they didn't value you. Certainty made you predictable, and predictable made you invisible. But the second you became unpredictable, the second you stopped texting first, stopped reacting, stopped showing up like clockwork, you became dangerous. Not because you changed who you were, but because you stopped giving them emotional GPS coordinates to track your every move. And now they don't know where you are, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Are you hurt? Are you healed? Are you over it? Or are you just calm? That not knowing eats at them. It loops, it replays, because the brain craves clarity, and you've become the cliffhanger they never saw coming. Imagine reading a book and getting to the most intense part, only to find the last chapter ripped out. No ending, no resolution, just space. That's what you become when you stop chasing people who stopped choosing you. You become that final chapter, that blank page. And no matter how many times they reread the story, they never get closure. Obsession doesn't grow in chaos. It grows in silence. It grows in the echo of your absence, in the questions you don't answer, in the conversations you no longer start. And the most haunting part, you didn't even slam the door, you just stopped walking toward it. They're not haunted by what you said. They're haunted by what you didn't. You didn't beg. You didn't explain. You didn't break down for them to feel better about leaving. You simply let them walk and you didn't follow. That's when the obsession begins, because now they have to imagine everything. Your silence becomes a screen onto which they project all their insecurities. Maybe you met someone new. Maybe you're better off. Maybe you've become the version of yourself they always feared you'd become, the one who doesn't need them anymore. Let me tell you something real. Certainty ends when your energy ends. When you stop chasing, they stop being sure. When you stop reacting, they stop feeling in control. When you stop needing answers, they start needing closure. And that's where they get stuck, because closure doesn't come from the person who walked away. It comes from within. But ego doesn't want healing. Ego wants control. And now they've lost it. Here's what makes this beautiful. You don't have to do anything extra. You don't need a new look. You don't need to post cryptic stories. You don't need to fake a glow-up. Your silence is the glow-up. Your indifference is the power. Your peace is the punishment. What drives people mad more than anything? Watching someone they took for granted become someone they no longer recognize. Because now they're stuck with the memory of who you were, but they have no access to who you've become. And that uncertainty, it spreads like wildfire. It keeps them up. It keeps them wondering. It keeps them chasing thoughts of you instead of having you. If this spoke to you like this video, subscribe for more and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who forgot their worth. Someone who's been giving too much to people who give too little. Let this be the reminder that their silence, their power, and their peace matter.